Why are lithium prices collapsing? Because I see so much conflict metals discussion when lithium is discussed, I would like to contribute that less than 3% of global lithium production takes place on small artisanal mines, in which place human rights abuse may occur. Over 85% of lithium is produced by just 2 international corporations with large-scale mines, complying with multiple international regulation requirements.
The space is saturated with anti-FUD.
Same thing happens with the gas stove threads. I can't believe that actual people are that invested in burning hydrocarbons. Reply.
They put out less BTUs, 9K versus 15K, 25K from a high-end gas burner, and you can't cook certain types of cuisines like a stir-fry, getting a good sear on steaks, etc. As someone who went from gas to electric, it really is a massive downgrade. Reply.
For serious chefs, gas ranges remain far superior to their electric counterparts. I'll be the first in line to buy an induction cooktop that performs as well as a high-end gas range, but we're not there yet. Reply.
What aspect of performance are they missing? Reply.
Greater than I can't believe that actual people are that invested in burning hydrocarbons. Yeah, it's weird, right? Why are people so invested in burning natgas and coal and other hydrocarbons for large-scale power generation when a plethora of proven near-zero emissions alternatives exist? From a climate change perspective, banning natgas cook stoves is a few pennies saved on like $1,000 expenditure. It's similar to the performative charging for plastic takeaway bags and not bringing out table water nonsense that California likes to do from time to time. It's way easier than making a real dent in the underlying problem. It inconveniences a ton of people, so they know you're doing something. And because something has been done, enough of those people don't bother finding out about it loudly and continually agitating for making a real dent in the underlying problem. Reply.
Gas stoves and plastic straws are distractions. They don't matter either way. Reply.
Because we all know international corporations never violate human rights.
That's kind of a ridiculous argument. Sure, international corporations violate human rights, but unless you provide proof these lithium corporations are, then we can just assume they aren't.
The more I read about prices of different commodities, the more I realized the biggest movement in prices is not because of demand and supply, but rather because of speculation and gambling, and how most of the news is manipulated. For example, they are equating lithium price fall with stagnating car sales. Whereas car sales might be stagnating, but electric car sales are taking a larger portion of total car sales. Electric car sales, lithium use is still increasing.
Speculation and gambling. Of course. The net present value of a stock or asset can only be calculated based on its expected future price and earnings. Since there's no way to know this with 100% certainty, stock prices are inherently speculative. Even value investors must struggle to accurately value a company's intangible assets.
But there's a material difference between attempting in good faith to determine what the demand for a commodity will be in the future, and buying based on that, and attempting to determine what the price of a commodity on the futures market will be, and buying based on that. When people say that a commodity's price is being driven by speculation and gambling, they mean that it has shifted from the former to the latter. This means that the price is disconnected from the actual, physical use of the commodity, and is instead being driven by the inconstant passions of the commodity's market itself.
But there's a material difference between attempting in good faith to determine what the demand for a commodity will be in the future, and buying based on that, and attempting to determine what the price of a commodity on the futures market will be, and buying based on that. These are indistinguishable. Unless you want to restrict markets to being only between suppliers and consumers, there will always be middlemen attempting to predict the price, and since they need to eat, they will be attempting to profit from changes in price. Which is fine because suppliers and consumers are many times willing to let others handle the risks of price changes, volatility. Hence the market for futures.
Speculation and gambling is just second-order supply and demand.
No, it's not. Finance bros like to tell themselves that, so that they can justify their place in morality.
It's nothing to do with morality or any justification, it's just what it is. Since there's an instrument to gauge supply and demand, that instrument can also be wanted, so there can be supply and demand of the thing that measures supply and demand. You can also do bad things on first order by hoarding the items themselves.
There is more to economics than supply and demand. This unnecessary gambling has too many negative externality, and I am own no positive effects, other than making some people some money with no work.
How do you measure the amount of unnecessary versus necessary gambling?
Necessary gambling is what helps the market figure out the real long-term availability of something. I have not seen any necessary gambling in my years in manufacturing. So in my view, all speculation on commodities seem unnecessary.
I have not seen any necessary gambling in my years in manufacturing. You need to manufacture a widget, and it must cost no more than $5. You have a few inputs to your widget, some made with steel, and some with plastic. If steel and plastic prices increase, your inputs cost more than $5 and you're making a loss on every widget you sell. So you go to the futures market and take a bet that the input prices will increase. If you're right, you win, which makes your widget manufacturing profitable, and you're still in business. If prices fall, you lose the bet. Your profits are lower. But hey, at least you're still in business. A responsible, well-run manufacturing business benefits from the existence of such a market because it allows them to de-risk.
I don't think supply and demand has much to do with morality.
Supply-demand doesn't, but this rampant gambling is morally detrimental, as it has unnecessary negative externality in society. They don't want to accept that their jobs are just a leech on society, and has no other benefit than to fill their own pockets.
I certainly agree there are many morally degenerate speculators whose presence is an overall net negative. But I think speculating on a commodity's price is pretty much required to make any sort of long-term plans involving that commodity. It all depends on the specific circumstance, really.
I work in manufacturing, in the high end of the tech. Our products have perhaps the most complex supply chain. I have talked to the industry best about this. I have never once heard an expert cite speculation as helpful for their 5-year or 20-year plan. But I don't want to make an argument from personal incredulity. Can you cite a source on how speculation helps long-term planning? Not popsy stuff, something concrete like a trade article, a manufacturing trade, or something written by a supply chain engineer.
Can you cite a source on how speculation helps long-term planning? Unless you lock in all commodity costs, how is long-term planning even possible without speculation? If you plan to open a distribution center somewhere, the optimal location depends on, e.g., fuel costs. You can't do anything but speculate about the costs of those commodities. So I don't even see the need to track down sources. Do you not see that you just need to guess at the future cost of certain things?
Counterpoint. Consumption, sin taxes.
Not sure what they have to do with morality either.
I'm not a huge fan of taxes, but they are absolutely about morality. Society as a whole deciding to discourage consumption of harmful, unhealthy things like sugar, soda, cigarettes, alcohol, etc.
A moral argument can be offered, sure. However, there is copious cause-effect data showing that non-sobriety is expensive in terms of health and societal repercussions.
It's interesting to see that people still believe there is some type of fair price discovery when things like dark pools, market maker exemptions, naked shorting, tokenized securities, trillions in derivative bets, hello 2008, spoofing, JP Morgan getting fined $1 billion after making $10 billion in profit in gold price spoofing, and so on and so forth exist. Speculation and gambling about what future prices will be are not the big issues here. The markets themselves are completely broken by design.
Wait until you learn about OPEC and oil prices.
I mean, that's a straight-up cartel. There's nothing surprising about that. But the op is confused about their comment about commodities in general. They are largely based on supply and demand, but most companies need to predict supply and demand months and years in advance, because converting raw material into a sale to the end user is a multi-month to multi-year process. So a natural result is that the prices are based on speculation of supply and demand, months to years in advance.
They are largely based on supply and demand, but most companies need to predict supply and demand months and years in advance, because converting raw material into a sale to the end user is a multi-month to multi-year process. So a natural result is that the prices are based on speculation of supply and demand, months to years in advance. But that practically means they are based on speculation about possible future supply and demand, and we are more or less taking it on faith that that speculation is correlated to actual supply and demand.